This message found you because something inside you finally changed. Not a small mood swing, not a passing whim, something deeper. Your energy moved, and the field around you answered. You feel it as a kind of exhaustion that ordinary rest will not touch. You know, in a way that goes past thought, that you can't keep pretending to be the person who belongs to yesterday's script. You are not failing. You are not weak. You are shifting. There is a particular kind of tiredness that does not come from long workdays or sleepless nights. It lives below the muscles and the mind. It settles under your ribcage like the gravity of an old story. It is quiet, persistent, and strangely insistent. Something must change. Call it spiritual fatigue if that word helps. Call it awakening pain if that name makes you breathe easier. The label is less important than recognition. When you name it, you stop fighting yourself. When you feel seen, you stop proving you are fine. So begin there. Accept that the exhaustion you carry is meaningful. It is not a failure of will. It is an evidence of expansion. This is not the same as ordinary tiredness. Ordinary tiredness lifts with sleep, or a weekend away, or a break from routine. Spiritual fatigue lingers even after rest. You can sleep 12 hours and wake still hollow, as if you had been dreaming a life that does not fit. Ordinary tiredness amber lights your body. Spiritual fatigue alarms your entire system. It says, this arrangement is no longer yours. How do you distinguish them? Look for the shape of your disinterest. Tasks you once completed without thought now feel like costumes. The clothes you put on each morning are no longer garments. They are roles you step into because everyone expects it. Conversations that used to nourish now scrape like sandpaper at the edges of your attention. You find yourself skimming the world, not because you are distracted, but because the ordinary textures no longer match the new softness inside you. It shows up as small betrayals. You plan a weekend the way everyone else plans it, and halfway through you wonder why you are filling your hours with things you don't actually want. It shows up as aversions. The meeting that used to be a formality now feels corrosive. It shows up as depletion. Socializing drains you. Quiet restores you, but not fully. It shows up as dissociation. You go through motions with the automatic precision of someone on autopilot and afterwards feel like a spectator to your own life. Here are more precise signs you will know if you read them slowly. Heavy chest in conversations where you once felt light. Sudden tears when you think about the future, not from grief, but from unnameable longing. A revulsion at your own schedule. The slow collapse of old ambitions that now sound hollow. The emergence of clarity in unlikely places. A feeling that says, this is not mine. Pause now briefly. Name one routine in your life that feels heavy. Say it inwardly.
Let the recognition land. This little act is not dramatic. It is an internal alignment. You do not need to act on it immediately. Not yet. You only need to notice. There is a mechanism here, and giving it language helps. Think of your life up to now as woven into a pattern, a matrix of expectations, habits, agreements, and identities that held you in shape. The matrix is not evil. It is efficient. It gives you a roadmap for how to behave, who to be, and how to appear to the world. It delivers survival and repetition. It taught you to move without asking, to mirror what was around you, instead of listening to what was within you. But no structure lasts forever. As your inner frequency changes, the matrix begins to lose its authority. Small cracks appear. At first, they are nearly invisible, a remark that no longer lands, a ritual that feels empty, a thirst for solitude that no friend understands. Then the cracks widen. Repetition fails to predict your inner weather. The autopilot that once felt so safe now feels like constraint. This process, deprogramming, unravels what you once called identity. Beliefs you inherited as truths begin to look like stories you were told. Roles you occupied suddenly require too much performance. Deprogramming is not a clean edit. It is messy. It is confused mornings, back and forth choices, moments of euphoria followed by low, shame-laden doubts. It is grief and relief braided together. You may feel unreliable. Relationships may wobble. People expect you to be the same, and you are not. That creates pressure. That pressure can feel like punishment. It is not. It is dissolving, the necessary softening before a new shape can form. As the old structures weaken, a new phenomenon appears, the sacred void. Do not fear that phrase. It is a space, not a threat. You have been taught to fear emptiness because the world often uses it as a marketing cue to sell you things to fill the gap. But this void is not a hole to be filled with distractions. It is a corridor, quiet, and wide enough for reconfiguration. The sacred void is disorienting because it removes the familiar scaffolding. Your internal GPS scrambles. You recognize less of your reflection. That is the point. The void asks you to be without definition for a little while. It asks you to stop performing. It asks you to let silence rearrange the priorities that once felt urgent. Within that void, you will feel odd privileges and hard costs. There will be moments of exquisite clarity when a single idea lands like a seed and you sense how it will root. There will also be days when you cannot make a single decision. This is normal. The void is not a linear process. It is a creative interval, like a winter in which only the strongest seeds decide to germinate. You are learning a new grammar, where before your choices were dictated by external cues, approval, fear, habit. Now you must practice listening to a subtle authority inside you.
Call this inner authority the spirit, or the quiet center, or simply your attention. It is not a voice outside you dictating fate. It is a presence that reshapes preference, that tilts small inclinations until they become a North Star. The future self arrives here not as someone distant and unattainable, but as a frequency you can tune toward. Imagine a version of you moving with less friction, making choices that feel knitted to truth, waking with a steadier calm. That version of you is not an impossible ideal. It is a potential line of continuity, habits, preferences, and small brave acts bending the present toward a new pattern. You will see early confirmations of that future self, like tiny returns on inner investments, a sudden sense of peace after a decision you think is too small to matter, an intuitive nudge that leads you away from a conversation that would have cost you energy, a creative idea that arrives with a clarity you have not experienced before. These are not guarantees of grand outcomes. They are calibrations. The field is responding to a new resonance you are offering. You may also experience small rejections from the world as your energy shifts. People who were comfortable with the old you may resist the new rhythms. That resistance is not always personal. Often it is the echo of somebody else's fear of change. What matters is that you learn to choose alignment over approval, not by cutting off relationships in anger, but by setting limits informed by your new center. This is where nuance matters. Changing your life need not be dramatic to be profound. It can be steady, incremental, patient, and compassionate. Let me name some sensations that often come with this passage. They will feel real to you if you are in this threshold. You feel heavier after small social interactions that used to leave you energized. Being on is now taxed. Quiet replenishes more than applause. You find rituals meaningless. Birthdays, achievements, routines. Where there was once celebratory friction, you now feel confused. The script feels out of date. You wake with inspiration that fades when you enter your day. It is as if the world still expects yesterday's you. The new idea cannot land. You crave solitude, not out of avoidance, but because solitude offers the permission to listen. You begin to refuse automatic stories. I must be productive. I must appear competent. I must be responsible. And you sit with who you are beneath those sentences. You feel a grief that has no clear source. It is grief for a self you are leaving behind. That grief is legitimate. Honor it. You experience sudden clarity about values. Where you once had scattered priorities, suddenly a simple question reveals whether something aligns. Does it sit right with my future self? Again, these are signposts, not instructions. Not everything you sense must be acted on at once.
The point is to recognize the pattern. Your energy has shifted. The environment is still the same. That mismatch creates friction and fatigue. Because this is a transition, you will likely feel two opposing currents at once. One current pulls you toward safety, toward the old predictability and the roles that once served you. The other pulls you toward truth, a quieter life that suits the new frequency. Both currents are valid. You do not need to shun the old with contempt, nor worship the new with panic. Permit both. Watch how the tension loosens when you give both currents room to exist without forcing a dramatic resolution. At some point, if you pay attention, you will recognize small openings, cracks as opportunities. The metaphor matters. Cracks are not failures. They are points where light can enter. Imagine the matrix like old pottery. When the glaze cracks, the piece is no longer watertight, but that crack allows a different relationship with the world. You can pour through it, or you can repair it carefully. In our work, the cracks are invitations to let consciousness escape repetition. They are openings through which you can imagine another way of being. Deprogramming is practical as well as poetic. It involves unlearning habitual thought forms and experimenting with new choices. Start small. Choose one habitual phrase you say to yourself. I'm not creative. I'm too old for this. This is how I have to be. And gently interrupt it. Replace it with observation rather than condemnation. I notice I told myself X. That shift in language loosens the old synaptic groove. Repetition matters here, but not as punishment. Repetition matters as practice. The new pattern forms by small, consistent acts that accrue into a different internal climate. You will also need tenderness. Deprogramming is not a moral failure to be corrected by willpower. It is a reorientation that needs compassion. Celebrate tiny acts that align you and forgive the times you fall into old modes. That fallen into place contains learning. Your future self is not seeking a flawless record. She is seeking attention and honest practice. There will be tactical moves that help this inner work. But before tactics, cultivate sensing. Slow down long enough to feel the edges of your experience. Note the phrases you use. Notice where your attention naturally goes. Practice saying no to small things that are not yours to carry. Create micro rituals that mark the interior change. A 15-minute pause in the morning, a movement that signals a boundary, a notebook where you translate intuitive nudges into simple experiments. These are not grand vows. They are containers for a different energy. A caution here, do not spiritualize every difficulty. If you find yourself sunk in a dark place that is persistent, if you experience thoughts of self-harm, if daily functioning feels impossible, there is no shame in seeking professional support.
Spiritual shifts and clinical conditions can intertwine, but they are not the same thing. Use spiritual practice alongside appropriate help when needed. That is wisdom, not weakness. Gradually, small confirmations will become more consistent. The future self will start issuing invitations that feel practical rather than fanciful, a course that calls to you, a person who reflects the new tone you are practicing, a job that requires less performance and more alignment. These opportunities appear as the field of your life starts to retune. Notice, too, the quality of these invitations. They are quieter and more precise than the noisy promises of external success. They come with a sense of rightness, not urgency. Here is an important nuance. The universe, or the field, or the resonance you are in, does not impose this future on you. It only reflects and amplifies what you are offering. Saying, "the universe chose you," is shorthand. More accurately, your energy shifted and the field responded with invitations that align to that frequency. That response is not fate that removes your agency. It is cooperation. You are still choosing. You are simply choosing from a wider, more resonant space. As you practice, you will find your energetic signature subtly changing. Your preferences will become clearer. Boundaries will feel less like walls and more like contour lines that reveal how you want to move through the world. People will notice the difference. Some will be curious. Some will be unsettled. Others will not notice at all. That is okay. Your alignment is primarily with yourself. Because this is a liminal passage, you may experience a peculiar loneliness. You are leaving a narrative that used to provide community, friction, and identity. Until your outer life aligns, the inner shift can feel isolating. This loneliness is a price that often accompanies authenticity. Honor it without romanticizing it. Seek connection where you can find safety and resonance. Find friends who ask good questions rather than demand versions of you that no longer fit. Now listen for your future self in small invitations. She is not a distant deity waiting to reward you. She is a magnet formed by habits, choices, and attention. Notice what she nudges toward. It may be a particular habit, a creative practice, a refusal of certain types of work, or a new way to speak about yourself. You don't need to enact everything that appears. You only need to test it, to experiment, to truth check the feeling of alignment. There is a simple practice you can use as an anchor in these moments of uncertainty. It is short, free, and seeds a different posture. Take a breath. Notice where tension gathers in your body. With the next exhale, imagine loosening one small thing, a phrase, a role, a story that has bound you. Say quietly, inside or aloud, "I release this because it is not mine." You don't need to burn your life down. You need only practice releasing the grip that keeps you in patterns that no longer resonate. You may feel shame when you first try this. You may think you are abandoning commitments or being selfish. That shame often comes from the Matrix's last efforts to keep you within its frame. Recognize it as an echo of the old system defending itself. When shame arrives, breathe and name it. Then return to the question, does this choice honor the version of me I am learning to be? The field is responsive to clarity. A clear boundary is more transformative than 1,000 vague intentions. That clarity can be as small as telling a friend you need a different kind of support, or as practical as setting a weekly hour for a practice that cultivates your future self. These acts accumulate. They are the apprenticeships of a new life. Around this time, you might also notice synchronicities, moments when outer events mirror inner shifts. You meet someone who articulates an insight you have been fumbling toward. A book falls into your hands that reframes a question. An opportunity appears that feels aligned and unexpected. These synchronicities are not proof of destiny. They are the feedback of resonance. They tell you that your frequency is matching something in the world. Notice them without building obsessive expectation. They are gentle confirmations, not guarantees. Now I want to offer you an invitation that has helped many people as an energetic signature, a way to anchor intention and record an inner yes. If you feel the shift described here, and if your heart is willing, consider marking it with a simple declaration. This is not a spell or a promise to the cosmos that guarantees outcomes. It is an affirmative act, a conscious, spoken yes to your own inner turning. If you feel this resonance, write in the comments now, if you are watching this, or speak quietly to yourself. I detach from the old matrix. Let it be a small ritual. Say it only if it is true for you. You do not need to perform for anyone. This is for your alignment. The phrase is a seal of attention, a symbolic signal that you are choosing differently. It does not ensure immediate transformation. It simply records a commitment to notice, to practice, to reorient. If you are not comfortable declaring it publicly, you can say it inwardly, or you can choose a different phrase that lands truer for you. The point is not the exact words. The point is to make a conscious act that marks transition. There is one more thing to keep in mind as you move through these early moments. Patience is an essential ally. The energy realignment you have entered is not an event, it is a process. It will bring both acceleration and slowdown. Sometimes everything speeds up and new opportunities crystallize quickly. Other times you will be met with a long pause that feels like nothing is happening. Both are part of the same passage. Both are necessary. You do not need to hurry your emergence.
You do not need to prove the shift with dramatic external changes. Let your internal attention be the compass. Small, consistent acts, shifts in language, the setting of micro-boundaries, the practice of listening create a sturdier bridge to the future self than any instant overhaul. There will be moments when you are tempted to trade authenticity for ease. The social cost of change can be heavy. The Matrix offers comfort in exchange for continuity. You will be asked to perform the older script, sometimes by people who love you, and sometimes by systems that reward predictability. Carefully weigh these invitations. Choose responses that preserve your integrity without reckless abandonment. Let wisdom, not bravado, guide the pace of transformation. You may also wonder how to involve practical responsibilities, jobs, families, obligations, without betraying your inner shift. There is no single answer. The invitation here is to integrate, not to abdicate. Look for ways to bring more truth into your daily life without creating unnecessary chaos. That might mean opening honest conversations with those affected, setting new boundaries gradually, or experimenting with adjustments that allow you to practice the new frequency while still honoring necessary commitments. As you experiment, keep a small inventory of confirmations. These do not have to be spectacular. A sustained feeling of peace that lasts longer each week, a clearer capacity to choose rest without guilt, a growing sense that small acts of honesty bring more ease. These are the real metrics that reveal alignment. They are slow-moving, but reliable. Remember also to cultivate community that respects the threshold. Seek people who can hold the paradox of both your grief and your hope. Find mentors who speak in practical terms and who have navigated similar shifts without turning them into doctrine. Avoid those who promise fast fixes
or demand absolute allegiance to a particular identity. Your path is yours. Learn from others, but do not surrender your discernment to their certainty. Sooner or later, you will notice a qualitative difference. Decisions become less draining. The noise of opinion matters less. A new economy of attention forms around you. That is the sense of being chosen, not by an external force that removes your agency, but by resonance that reflects back the new frequency you are practicing. The universe in this metaphor is simply responsive. It is a mirror more than a judge. If the sense of being chosen feels foreign or grandiose, let the language rest in practical terms. Your energy shifted, the field matched it, invitations arrived. This is humility in spiritual language. It keeps you accountable to choice and experience rather than to prophecy. At some point you will want to ask, how long will this take? There is no fixed timetable. The process often follows natural rhythms, periods of intense rearrangement followed by consolidation.
Some people notice a rapid realignment over months. Others move more slowly, across years. The important metric is not speed, but fidelity. Fidelity to the quiet nudges, fidelity to small experiments, fidelity to consistent attention. There is one final practical instruction I want to leave with you in this passage. Cultivate a simple daily practice that returns your attention to calibration. It does not have to be elaborate. It can be 5 minutes of breath where you ask, what does my future self want me to know right now? Then listen, without forcing content. Write down whatever arises. Over weeks, these notes form a map. You will recognize patterns. That small practice is a slow, steady anchor in a time when the world around you seeks to keep you in the old groove. If at any point the process becomes overwhelming, reach out for support, therapeutic, medical, or communal. Shifts can stir deep histories. Professional help is a wise complement to spiritual exploration when mental health symptoms become severe. You are not failing by seeking help. You are choosing health. Now, if this message resonates, if the recognition sits in your body like a responsive echo, consider making the symbolic declaration we spoke of earlier. If you feel moved to do so, write or say, I detach from the old matrix. Use it as a marker of attention. Use it as a prompt to schedule a practical experiment this week, a small boundary, a new micro-ritual, a conversation that sets a different tone. If you choose to declare it publicly, do so with the understanding that this phrase is a seed you plant in your own soil, not a guarantee of a harvest by tomorrow. If you choose to declare it privately, honor that privacy as an honest boundary. Either way, the act matters because it turns the internal shift into a conscious step. There is more ahead. The cracks will widen, the void will deepen and then begin to bloom. The future self will offer ever clearer invitations. In the next moments of this unfolding, you will likely face choices that test your willingness to remain aligned. Some will be small and quiet, some will be noisy and public. For now, allow the energy of this recognition to settle. Breathe into the tension. Let patience be your companion. Hold this thought as you move into the next phase. You are not being punished by confusion. You are being afforded a space to become. The field responded because you changed your frequency, not because a cosmic ledger singled you out. Your work now is simple and radical, to practice fidelity to what you notice, to treat small shifts as meaningful, and to be gentle with yourself as the old matrix loses its hold. Say the phrase once more if it feels true. I detach from the old matrix. Mutations that will come as your energy continues to shift.
Keep walking toward that soft yes. Let the phrase you spoke, I detach from the old matrix, settle like a pebble in a still pond. Ripples will follow. Some days the surface will be glassy and the ripples will be barely visible. Other days a gust will push them into complicated patterns. Both are part of integration. Now let us consider how to live this shift without turning it into a drama or into another performance. Integration is not an event. It is a daily art. It is practice disguised as ordinary life. The future self you are tuning toward is formed by small, repeated choices that honor the new frequency. Below are clear, usable ways to practice that honor, concrete experiments that do not require a manifesto. Pick one or two. Do them for a week. Observe what changes. First practice, the 2-minute pause. Before you answer an email, a message, a request, before you say yes, give yourself 2 minutes. Breathe. Notice where tension sits in your body. Ask silently, does this align with the person I am becoming? 2 minutes will not derail your life. It will create a habit of choice rather than reflex. Over time, those 2-minute pauses accumulate into a different economy of attention. Second practice, a weekly field audit. Once a week, take 20 minutes and write 3 columns. What drained you this week? What fed you this week? One tiny action you can take next week to increase alignment. Keep these pages private. Use them as data, not as a moral ledger. The audit turns mood into information. It turns confusion into a map. Third practice, replace one automatic sentence. Notice a phrase you often say that reenacts the old script. I'm too busy. I can't. I don't have time. For 1 week, catch yourself each time you say it and reframe it. Try, I notice I said X, or I'm choosing Y instead. The language shift rewires the reflex. It is mundane, but it matters. Fourth practice, micro boundaries with clear language. You do not need dramatic speeches. Use small, precise sentences. Examples, I can meet for 30 minutes, then I need to leave. I'm in a transition. I'm not able to take this on right now. I appreciate that you care. I need support that looks like this. Fill the blank with what actually helps you. Boundaries are not punishments. They are contours that clarify how you move through relationships while your inner frequency rearranges. Fifth practice, a future self letter. Once a month, write a short note from the perspective of the you are becoming. Do not make it lofty. Keep it specific. The tone of your mornings, the kind of music that would feel right, the way a neighbor speaks to you, the tasks you would rather do or not do. Read it aloud. Let it calibrate choices. This letter acts as a magnet because it clarifies details the mind can follow. Now a few guiding principles for the social landscape, because the field around you will not always move in harmony with your inner change.
Be curious before you are defensive. When someone resists your change, ask a question. I notice you seem concerned. Can you tell me more? Often people react from fear, not malice. Curiosity opens a bridge. It also slows your reactivity and allows you to choose how much energy you want to invest. Use clarity rather than explanations. You do not have to justify the entire interior geography of your shift. A simple statement, I'm changing what I can take on right now, is enough. Explanations can become negotiations. Clarity is a boundary. Preserve dignity in departures. If a relationship or role is shifting beyond repair, exit with the kind of grace that aligns with the person you are becoming. You can be honest without annihilating. You can be steady without needing to be dramatic. This is the practice of integrity. Hold financial prudence as you experiment. Alignment rarely requires reckless abandon. Before major decisions, changing careers, moving cities, gather information, plan small tests, and maintain safety nets. The field responds to clarity, not to frantic leaps. Test the water before you build the bridge. Teach those close to you how to support you. People who love you often want to help but do not know how. Give them simple options. Sit with me in silence for 10 minutes. Ask me what I need before you advise. Check in by asking how I'm doing instead of telling me what to do. Offering scaffolding helps them remain present without reverting to old scripts. Practice radical tenderness toward yourself on the days the old patterns win. Falling into an old story is not failure, it is information. Ask, what led me there? What felt safe? What did I need that I didn't get? Then make one small correction. The goal is not perfection, it is curiosity that leads to change. There will be moments of disorientation that feel embarrassing or foolish. You will say the wrong thing, miss a deadline because you were following a different priority, or feel exposed because you are no longer wearing the same face. These moments are proof you are moving. They are teaching points. Collect them without shame. They are the raw material of an integrated life. Somatic practices anchor the energy shift in the body. Your energy moved first. The body will follow if you bring attention. Try these short, embodied anchors. Grounding breath. 3 slow inhales through the nose, longer exhale through the mouth. Let your belly soften on each exhale. Do this before decisions or weekly audits. Micro movement. Stand and stretch for 2 minutes whenever you feel stuck. Shake your hands, roll your shoulders. Movement releases old holding patterns. Heart question. Place a hand on your chest and ask, what does my future self need now? Wait 15 seconds. Let whatever arises be the instruction for a micro action. These practices are not spiritual bypassing. They are practical means to translate subtle shifts into lived habits.
Now, address the fear that sometimes follows recognition. If the field is responding to you, Does that mean you will lose what you have? Not necessarily. Some things will leave. Some things will change shape. Some things will deepen into truer forms. The measure of what stays is whether it can hold the new resonance you carry. If something cannot hold it, consider whether its departure is a loss or a necessary reconfiguration. You may also wonder about speed. You will have bursts, periods when many things rearrange quickly, and plateaus, long intervals when outer life appears stubborn. Treat both as curriculum. Bursts teach you expansion. Plateaus teach you cultivation. Both are required. Let us consider setbacks. A setback is rarely a lesson in failure. It is an instruction in nuance. When one arrives, do not perform shame. Instead, treat it as diagnostic data. Ask, which pattern did I default to? What boundary loosened? Which conversation did I avoid? Use the 2-minute pause, the audit, and small corrections. The practice that kept you moving forward is the practice that recenters you after a stumble. Cultivate community, but curated. The people who will most support you are not necessarily those who cheer your every change. They are those who can hold complexity, people who both witness your grief and celebrate your clarity. Seek mentors who have traversed thresholds with humility and who can offer practical feedback. Join conversations that prioritize curiosity over certainty. Avoid places that demand proof of transformation in exchange for belonging. Pay attention to the quality of invitations that arrive. As your energy shifts, offers will come in different tonalities. Some will be loud and promising quick elevation. Others will be quiet, precise, and asking for a different kind of skill. Favor the invitations that ask you to show up in ways that feel like practice rather than performance. A short ritual for days when uncertainty is loud. Sit in a quiet chair. Place a notebook on your lap. Breathe 3 times. Write the question, what does my future self need now? Set a timer for 5 minutes. Write without censor. When the timer ends, read back what you wrote and circle one tiny experiment, an action that takes less than 30 minutes, that aligns with what you discovered. Do that experiment within 48 hours. Record the outcome in that same notebook. Small, regular experiments shorten the distance between you and your future self. As your life adjusts, you may notice an internal economy shifting. You value presence over performance. You choose depth over breadth. You no longer collect activities to signal worth. This economy is calmer. It is quieter. It requires discernment. Learn to say no without guilt, because each no reserves capacity for a more aligned yes. Now, a brief word about critics and inner critics. The old matrix is not only external.
It also lives inside you as a voice that doubts, shames, and predicts disaster. That voice will grow louder when you make changes because it recognizes a threat to its narrative. When it speaks, do not argue at length. Name it. That's the old story speaking. Then offer a corrective question. What small step can I take that aligns with my intention? Redirect energy toward action rather than debate. The voice will quiet when it sees consistent evidence that you will not be derailed by its alarms. A practical tool for measuring alignment, the ease scale. Rate decisions from 1 to 10 by how easy they feel in your body and how light they land in your week. Low scores indicate friction that needs attention. High scores suggest growing coherence. Use this scale when choosing projects, social invitations, or habits. It is not a replacement for stewardship, but it is a helpful signal. Remember to celebrate the little confirmations. Alignment often shows itself in quiet ways. A friend who genuinely listens. A morning when doing less produces more creativity. A moment of laughter that comes without effort. Notice those moments. Allow gratitude to settle. Gratitude is not a tool to force optimism. It is a practice of noticing the positive at the level of experience, which strengthens the new frequency you are cultivating. If you feel alone in this work, consider creating a small ritual of witnessing. Once a week, call or meet with one person who can listen without advising. Share what shifted this week, what felt hard, and the one experiment you will try next. The discipline of bearing witness transforms private shifts into lived accountability without performance. There will be cultural forces that try to pull you back. Systems reward predictability. Workplaces, families, and institutions prefer continuity. This tension is natural. You will need to learn translation, how to be aligned and also effective within structures that are slower. Translate the new priorities into practical contingencies. What of 3 things you can adjust today that do not threaten your responsibilities, but do honor your new tendencies? Start there. Now, come back to the central image, the sacred void.
It continues to be a corridor, a cocoon, not a punishment. Hold tenderness for the parts of you that miss the old roles. Grief for a former self is not regressive. It is proof of attachment and therefore of life. Sit with that grief. Let it be honored. But do not move back into old forms merely to avoid discomfort. Your future self requires a different ecology, a place where appetite, attention, and integrity align. We have spoken of the field and resonance, and the idea that the universe chose you because your energy shifted. Let that language be humble and grounded. It is not a decree, it is a mirror. The field reflects what you offer. When you become clearer, the world offers opportunities that match that clarity. Your agency remains intact.
You are co-creating with resonance, not submitting to destiny. Before we close, a practical checklist to carry in your pocket this week. Pause twice daily for a 2-minute check-in. Do one 2-minute boundary test. Say no to a small request or set a short limit. Complete one field audit and identify one experiment to run. Write a 2-minute letter from your future self and save it. Practice the grounding breath whenever you feel old patterns pulling. These steps are small. They are intentionally small. Their power is in repetition. If at any point the inner terrain becomes overwhelmingly dark, or if you have thoughts of harming yourself, reach out for professional help immediately. This work can touch deep wounds. There is wisdom in combining inner exploration with clinical support when needed. Seeking help is an act of courage and care. Now, return to your breath. Take 3 slow inhales and let each exhale be a settling. Let patience be an ally. Let steadiness be a practice. You have arrived at a threshold because your energy moved. The field responded because you offered something truer. This is not an arbitrary selection. It is an echo of resonance. If this message resonates, and if you feel seen by what you have read, consider making the symbolic public or private declaration one more time. Say it aloud, type it, or hold it quietly. I detach from the old matrix. Make the declaration only if it feels true. Use it as a marker of attention. Pair it with one small experiment you will try this week, the 2-minute pause, a boundary, a field audit. Let the declaration be a seal on your intention, and the experiment be the proof of practice. You do not owe anyone proof. You owe yourself attention. Keep that attention gentle, patient, and consistent. The cracks will widen. The void will bloom. The future self will emerge in forms both unexpected and unsurprising, gentle confirmations of a life tuned to a different frequency. You were not punished into this awareness. You were invited. The universe, or the field, or resonance, call it what you will, mirrored the movement inside you. It offered possibilities that matched your new energy. Remain faithful to the small acts. Honor your grief. Practice tenderness. Choose with clarity. Over time, what felt like an exhausting misfit will become the ordinary shape of a life that finally fits. If you feel moved, write in the comments now, or say quietly to yourself, I detach from the old matrix. Let that be your soft, sovereign yes. Then pick one small experiment to do this week. Return to your notes. Track what changes. You are not alone in this passage. Many have walked similar thresholds and found that the line between confusion and clarity is narrower than it seemed. Your energy shifted. The field noticed. Now continue, patiently, with compassion and with the clear, steady attention that creates a new world around you.